I'd like myself to make a few remarks. I hope you don't mind, and then I'll hand over to Jane, who will just tell us where the road runs from here and where we go. When I became Bishop of Liverpool here 6 years ago, I, as it were, gave my keynote address to the diocese so that they would know what kind of person I was. And in it, I used the image of a table, and I said that people of faith, as they sit, it's like a table. And because I'm a Christian, the way I explained it was to say, there's a carpenter who's made a table, and you sit at the table, at the carpenter's table. The carpenter sits beside you. The carpenter, of course, for Christians, Jesus Christ. Carpenter sits so close beside you that even no matter how quickly you turn, you can't see him. The carpenter's there, but you can't see. What you can see are the people sitting at the table. And then I said, I'm not going to give you the whole sermon, you can cheer up, but I did say this, and I want to say it today. I said it's not a round table, it's a square table. Because sometimes you need to sit and face other people face to face. And I said sometimes it's a table for thumping, and sometimes it's a table for signing treaties. And the reason I thought of sharing that with you now at the end of the day is that as I've been listening throughout the day, I've been hearing about the importance of honesty. I've been hearing someone say it's hard to demonize people when you're face to face with them. I've heard Mark Strange say a moment ago, it's never impossible to have relationship. In my own ministry, people have broken that relationship, but my line has always been, you can close the door, but I'm not going to lock it. You can always open it again. Anyway, I spoke there about a table, but I didn't know that in Liverpool there was a community called Open Table, an LGBTI community, which has since then multiplied within the church to 15 different communities all over the country. I did not know that. I did not know that I was talking about a table as ministers do. There was a real live one in the city, comprised of people who sometimes would suffer street violence, trans people, people ostracized by their community, gay people, lesbian people, who had found one another and who sat around this table, this open table, within the Christian tradition, but it could have been in any tradition. Earlier on, when Ahmed spoke, someone in the chat, you remember he almost broke down. Someone said, your emotion is the witness we need. Your emotion is the witness we need. We are on a journey, friends, which is about changing structures. We want to see conversion therapy banned in England and across the country and across the world. We want to see the homosexuality decriminalized in all those countries where it is still a criminal offense, getting on for half of which are in the British Commonwealth. We want to see political things done. We want to speak love to power. But it's emotion that is the witness, because we're speaking on behalf of people, of ourselves as people, but also of the people we know, some of whom cannot speak for themselves because they have been silenced. Silenced sometimes by violence, certainly silenced by oppression. And we speak for them, as Rabbi Laura has said, in ways which are annoying, in ways which are unquenchable, in ways which are grumpy sometimes, because we have truth to say on their behalf and on our own. And we advocate for these things because we sit at a table which we believe has been made by the divine, a table at which we've been invited to sit by love, and in which we can look other people in the eye. And sometimes we have to say to them, you're wrong. And then to explain why. And then we have to sit back. As my father used to say to me, 2 ears, 1 mouth. We listen twice as much as we speak and let them say to us what they think. But David Rosen said, we are rooted in a tradition, and he spoke to us out of his tradition that spoke of the pricelessness of the human being. And each one of us in our different traditions can speak like that. But we have to be at the table to speak. and we speak on behalf of those whom we invite with us and sit at the table, and who teach us out of their woundedness what it is to be truthful people. And most of all, what I believe this day has achieved, and the declaration has achieved, and the media interest in it has achieved, is that it's said again to the world. There is no there is no inevitable chasm between people of faith and people who are LGBTQIA inclusive. It is because of our faith that we want to include. And that message reframes the question, which for me in my own church, and it may be for you in your faith community, people say, oh, this is such an introverted question. Why do you keep talking about sexuality, relationships, and marriage? Why can't you just get on and talk about bigger things? And I've never understood that. Because the question that God asks us is the question that God asks us through real people hurting. It's not for us to pick the question. And so I want to say to you, you have reframed, you on the Zoom call, you listening to this, you have reframed once again the question of what it is to be human and what it is to be a person of faith in such a way as to open the heart and the door for inclusion. And we have sat at a table today. It's had to be this funny table whereby there are screens and one little room with a few people in it and everybody else in their own front room. That kind of table, but we have sat there, and in a moment we'll speak from that table about our business. But by sitting here, we have reframed the question once again. And I hope that each of us, as we speak to one another and listen today, will go from here determined to sit at other tables with other people, so that this reframing may be cascaded. And on behalf of the Zan Foundation, which Jane leads and which it's my privilege to chair the trustees of, I want to thank all of you who have contributed to and attended this meeting, all of you who will listen to it later electronically, all of you in the different ways that you have who are plugged into this, for being part of something which is not over, but which has only begun and which will end in a rainbow glory. I thank you for that. And in a moment, I'll be back just to finally round off the conference. But before I know we're handing over now to Jane, who will just explain some of the practical next steps, not only for today, but also how we can share all this news around the world. Jane, thank you.
Thank you, Bishop Paul. I'm holding here the declaration that now hundreds of people are signing. And the first thing I want to do is to say thank you to Bishop Paul. He and I met over a table, over lunch, just over 5 years ago now. And we had a very frank conversation. I had no idea where Bishop Paul stood on these issues. And he turned to me and said, I'm on Team Ozan. And it was perhaps the most affirming, positive thing I'd ever heard. It's a relationship that has grown through the years, and everything that we have done together, both as the Ozan Foundation and now as the Global Interfaith Commission, has been thanks to the leadership of Bishop Paul and the courage he's shown of standing firmly, head far above the parapet, where he has many colleagues who believe as he does, but don't perhaps say so as vocally. So Bishop Paul, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for walking with us. Thank you for leading us in this declaration. I've got to thank Rabbi Laura too for co-chairing with us, and for all of you who've taken part today. The important thing, though, is that it doesn't end here. And where do we take this next? Well, there's two things I'd ask you to do. One, if you tweet or if you're on social media, please amplify the messages from today. Please share the good news that there are a global cohort of faith leaders who want to create a different relationship, who want to see a different form of celebratory inclusion for LGBT people in this world. There are videos that you can tweet. There will be videos of each of these speeches placed on our website, www.globalinterfaith.lgbt. All the speeches will be available in the week or so ahead. But most importantly, can you sign the declaration and encourage others to do so? And you do that by going to our website, www.globalinterfaith.lgbt, and encourage your religious faith leaders and those you know around you, those who are privately affirming but have never actually come into the open, to sign. There is a way of signing privately. If you're in a place where it's actually dangerous for you to be publicly endorsing, we completely understand that. But add your name so we can count your number. But please, stand with us and let the voice of the voiceless be heard at long last. Thank you.
Friends, if you're living in London, which is under Tier 3 regulations, you are still allowed to attend a place of worship. And at 5:30 in Westminster Abbey, there will be a celebration. It will be filmed and you'll get a chance to see it later. But just to say, if you happen to be living in Westminster, first of all, I'm glad you can afford it. And secondly, do wander around there to Westminster Abbey for the celebration, which will round off. We had hoped, of course, that we could all be there, but sadly that's not been the case. I too want to thank just a couple of people before we rise from the table, as it were, and go about our business. First of all, the technical organisers. This day, unlike just about any other remote event I've been involved in, has gone like a dream. And that's because of the hard work of Media Powerhouse and of Derek and Chris and their colleagues who've put together the screens that you can see and the ways in which it plugs into Zoom and live streaming. I'm so grateful to them for the skill that they've brought and shared with us. And I want to thank colleagues of Jane's who've really been working their hearts out for these last few weeks. Donna Rowlands and Jackie Bowden, both of you have gone, never mind about the extra mile, you've gone supersonic for the extra work that you've both done. And on behalf of all of us, I'm grateful to you. And Jane, I'm sorry that this sounds like a mutual appreciation society, but I do want to thank you for animating things. There are some people, friends in the world, who speak a lot. And when all is said and done, there's a good deal more said than there is done. And then there are movers and shakers. And if you stand within a mile of Jane, you will know that she's a mover and a shaker, and usually you'll be moved and shaken. Jane, you're a force in nature, and my profound hope is that you'll continue to apply that force until the world is changed. And my assumption is that given the amount of force you bring to bear, that won't take very long. But we love you, Jane, and we are so grateful to you. I speak on behalf of those on the Zoom room, of Laura and myself, of all the speakers today. Thank you for being an animator and a motivator of change and truth. We are so grateful to you. And there she is, looking embarrassed, as we all hoped she would. So thank you, sister. And as I said a minute ago, friends, we're now going to rise from the table and go about our business. It's therefore just for me to thank those of you on the Zoom room, those of you who in all kinds of different ways have plugged into this, and to promise you that I will not let this drop. I will make my signature mean something. And I know that is true of you. And I hope it's true of all those hundreds who've signed already. Please share the word, but also act on it. May God bless you all, the God who comes to you in all different faith traditions and in all different ways. And may we stand together for the things we hold so dear. We're going to end more or less as we began, with the filmed declaration. And at the end of that declaration, friends, you're free to go back into your lives, carrying the truth of that declaration with you. So here we go. Thank you very much, and goodbye. We come together as senior religious leaders, academics and lay leaders from around the world to affirm the sanctity of life and the dignity of all.
We affirm that all human beings of all sexual orientations, gender expressions, and gender identities are a precious part of creation and are part of the natural order.
We affirm that we are all equal under God, whom many call the divine, and that we are all therefore equal to one another. We call for all to be treated equally under the law.
We recognize with sadness that certain religious teachings have often, throughout the ages, caused and continue to cause deep pain and offense to those who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex.
We acknowledge with profound regret that some of our teachings have created and continue to create oppressive systems that fuel intolerance, perpetuate injustice, and result in violence. This has led and continues to lead to the rejection and alienation of many by their families, their religious groups, and their cultural communities.
We ask for forgiveness from those whose lives have been damaged and destroyed on the pretext of religious teaching.
We believe that love and compassion should be the basis of faith, and that hatred can have no place in religion.
We call on all nations to put an end to criminalization on the grounds of sexual orientation or gender identity, for violence against LGBT individuals to be condemned, and for justice to be done on their behalf.
We call for all attempts to change, suppress or erase a person's sexual orientation, gender identity or gender expression, commonly known as conversion therapy, to end, and for these harmful practices to be banned.
Finally, we call for an end to the perpetuation of prejudice and stigma, and commit to work together to celebrate inclusivity and the extraordinary gift of our diversity.